Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lauren, wedding planner and owner of Bluebird Creative. If you haven't already, then make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified every week when a new video lands full of wedding planning goodness for the modern bride. This week we're hopping in to on the day wedding stationery. Now you might be wondering what on the day wedding stationery is. We always think about invitations, there's the save the dates and there's the RSVPs, and I will link a video that I've already done on those up here for you if you haven't dived in to that area of your stationery yet. But what about the stationery and the signage that you need on the day? Let's hop in. I'm going to break it down into the different sections of the day. Let's go. Okay, so let's start with the wedding ceremony. The stationery that you're probably going to need on the day here is an order of service or an order of ceremony. They are the same thing, but if you are having a church service, it is an order of service, and if you are having a civil ceremony, it is an order of ceremony. It is essentially a booklet or a sheet, a piece of paper that explains what's happening in the wedding or in the ceremony, and perhaps has who's doing any readings, the title of the reading, and if you've got hymns, make sure they're in there with the words because your guests will love you. Trust me, I never know the words to hymns and I've done a lot of weddings. You might also like to put on the front cover the location, the date, and the fact that it's your wedding, as it is a really nice keepsake for family and friends. Then there's signage for the ceremony. Now there's different areas where you may want to add some signage. So that might be some sort of directions to the car park, or just some directions in general, just to help people find the location if it's a little bit off the main road as such. You could just literally just put some simple signage up, or you can tie something in that looks really beautiful and fits with your wedding theme and style. Some other signage that you might want for the ceremony could possibly be a welcome sign when people are actually arriving to the church or to the wedding ceremony, whether it's a civil ceremony or a church service. You might want a welcome sign that just welcomes your guests and perhaps says welcome to the wedding of, or just literally welcome, and you can have that decorated up and propped onto an easel, or you can get really creative and create something a little bit spectacular and bespoke. Another piece of signage that you might like for your wedding ceremony is something to let your guests know where they need to sit. Now, it may literally just say take a seat. If you are having bride's friends to one side and grooms to the other, then you might want to indicate that. Or perhaps you don't mind where people sit and you love the little poems and rhymes that you found on Pinterest. For example, take a seat, not a side, and there are so many better ones than that on Pinterest, so do go take a look. But that's always nice as guests are making their way into the ceremony, just a little sign, something a little bit personal, and just to tell guests where to go. But you do have ushers as well, and their job will be to help direct guests through to their seats. So that's totally optional. You don't need that sort of signage, but it's a nice touch. So let's move on to the drinks reception. What signage and stationery might you need during this element of the day? Now, again, if you have had a church service, then your guests will likely be changing location for the rest of the day. So you may want to have a welcome sign at the entrance to the drinks reception, because that is where the guests are going to be remaining for the rest of the day, and it's obviously a new location. You may decide to have one there as opposed to having it at the church service. If you've had your ceremony and your reception all on the same site, then perhaps you'll just have it there at the beginning of the ceremony and you won't need to move it again for the drinks reception. It's totally down to you. If you are considering an unplugged wedding, then you might be wanting to put some signage up. You may have wanted to put some up for the ceremony. You may decide to do it now. Again, it's up to you. You could always write something in the order of service / ceremony about an unplugged wedding, and then you could have some signage up during the drinks reception. I have done a video on having an unplugged wedding, so do check that out if that's something that you are considering. But it's really important that you let your guests know that those are your wishes. So signage, I think, here is key. On the other hand, you may be going completely down the other road and you don't have any obligation with social media and images going out during your wedding or the day after, or perhaps beating you with getting photos out on social media. It does happen. So perhaps you're deciding to have a wedding hashtag, in which case people need to know what the wedding hashtag is. So signage here is a really good idea. And again, during this part of the day, you may just want some little elements to guide your guests, to give them more knowledge, to stop them from wondering what's going on, what's that. The more you give them, the less questions they're going to ask, the more they're going to relax, and the more they're going to enjoy themselves. So perhaps having an order of the day is a nice idea. So that might just be a really big poster on an easel, or perhaps a wooden pallet and you've painted it up and it's standing somewhere pretty. It is totally up to you. Again, the options are endless. This might feature really simple things like ceremony, 1 p.m, drinks reception, 1:30 p.m, wedding breakfast, 4 p.m, get your dancing shoes on, 7 p.m. Really simple. Definitely put when they'll be eating, because when people know what time they're being fed, they're usually happy. So I would definitely advise doing something like that. And finally, for the drinks reception, you may decide to have your own signature cocktail. So perhaps you could have that drawn up and popped on the bar so guests can see that that's the cocktail, what it is, what's in it. You can have a bespoke drawing done of the cocktail, something nice like that. And any other elements that you have going on during the drinks reception, you might want to pop little bits of signage up so that people know what's on offer and what they can do. So the next section of the day is the wedding breakfast, and this is where you will most commonly see the on the day stationery. So at this part of the day, you're going to have things like the place names, table plans, or escort cards, depending on which route you go down. Then there's also the option of menus. So let's just dive into those a little bit. So place names simply are a name or your guest's name, and they are placed at their place setting. These can be done in such beautiful manners. It can literally just be a very simple card with their name written on it. You might want to have calligraphy as the style of writing. You may not want to use card. You may want to use beautiful shells, or you may decide that you want to have them on tags tied around favours. However you want to do it, it is completely up to you. But basically, a place name is so that your guests know where their chair is, where their seat is, and it will also mean that they get the right meal, especially if they have any dietary requirements. Then we move on to the table name. Now, the table name is so that when guests come in and they look at the table plan, and we'll go into that in a second, they can then look for the table and then they look on the table for their place name. It makes things a lot simpler. You don't get people wandering around the whole hall at every single place setting hoping that they're going to find their name. And again, these can be displayed in any manner. They can just be in a photo frame. You can have them hanging from floral arrangements. You can really think outside the box here and make them quite beautiful. So let's go back to the table plan. The table plan will be at the entrance to your wedding breakfast, and it will be a display. Again, so many options. You can make some hanging displays, which are really quite phenomenal, or you can simply have a poster popped onto an easel. Nothing is wrong. It is totally down to you, your style, and your wedding day. On the table plan, it will simply state the different table names and who is sat at the table, so that, as I said, the guests can then easily find the table and then find their seats. You can get creative, so something that we've done before, for example, is have the favourite bands that they have seen over the years together. Then the table plan was a display of CDs, and on the CDs was the name of the band, because those were the names of the tables, and then the guests were actually printed onto the CDs. Now that was all displayed, and then each table name was displayed on a matching CD as well. So that's a little bit bespoke, but there are so many different options. Now let's just quickly touch on escort cards. Escort cards come from America. There is no rule to say that it is only Americans that have to do this, because these are starting to come in over in the UK a little bit more, so the option is down to you. And an escort card essentially is that you will pick a card with your name on it. You will find your card, with your name on it, and on the back it will say your table number or your table name, and you will then make your way over to your table and find your matching place name there. So instead of having a massive display with the tables, you will have individual name cards with the table on the back that way. So just a slightly different way of doing it, and you can display those in different manners as well. So it's totally down to what suits you best and what way you want to go about it. And finally, at this part of the day, the stationery left to mention is menus. Now this is completely optional and you don't have to do this. It doesn't add to the logistics and making things smooth for your couples, but it is nice for them to know what they're going to be eating. So if you decide to have a menu, you may decide to just pop one in the centre of the table for guests to all have a look at so that they know what to expect. You may decide to have one between two, or you may decide to give one per guest and place it on their place settings, which can look really beautiful. I have done with clients before where we've had the menu printed onto fabric with illustrations of some of the food as well, and then the fabric has been a napkin, a menu and a favour all in one. It was very, very luxurious. It was absolutely beautiful, but you can simply have one in the middle of the table. Okay, so let's move on to the final part of the day, which is the evening reception. Now at this point, most people have settled into the day. They don't need too much help navigating what's going on, and things do tend to flow quite nicely. However, there are a couple little bits that do make the experience smoother, and if you have got any evening guests arriving, this will make life easier for them as well without them having to find somebody to ask them any questions. So my suggestion would be to have some signage for the guest book so that guests know this is the guest book, or if you've gone for something a little bit modern and a little bit different, letting them know that this is the table that includes this and what they should do. Another piece of on the day signage you should consider is for the gift and card table. Guests will no doubt have bought you a present or have a card, and they will want to know where to put it. Now this might be out during the drinks reception as well, because guests will want to be able to place it down. They do not want to be carrying it throughout the whole day. So I suggest you make that in a visible spot and that there's a sign so that guests know that that's where they can place it, that it's safe and that they don't have to lug it around all day. And that, my lovelies, is everything. Obviously, if you've got some added elements that you're adding to your day, you may want to add some more signage just to make the experience really smooth for your guests. Adding really bespoke on the day stationery and signage really can make the day more personal, and you really can get creative and think outside the box. I hope you found this video helpful this week, and remember guys, if you haven't already, then I've got a free wedding planning checklist which I have linked in the description below, so please grab that and use it. It's got 12 months of how to plan your wedding and when to do it, and it's completely free. So I hope that helps you. I will see you next week guys for some more wedding planning goodness. I'll see you then.